EDH deck building. I am your host, Demo, and we got some very, very early spoilers from Lost Caverns of Ixalan slash Jurassic Park. So there's going to be, for those who don't know, some more Universes Beyond stuff coming out. I mean, geez, they're almost doing it with every set now. So coming out in the next Ixalan set, which of course has a dinosaur theme, is going to be some Jurassic Park stuff. And I mean, they're really going nuts with the Universes Beyond stuff. I mean, I saw they had some Princess Bride stuff coming out. That one I thought was pretty funny because it's like a 30-year-old movie. And I love that movie. It's a classic without question. It seems odd for them to, I mean, I wonder why that. Maybe it just depends on the IP they can get their hands on or something. We'll take a look at some of them. There's definitely some interesting commanders. I want to start out, though, by saying the basic lands from this set are amazing. I think, again, pretty much in every set now, we get this very unique looking basic land, obviously from each type that comes out. And, a lot of hit or miss, it depends on each individual. And that's the kind of stuff that I love about this. I actually like that they're doing that. Some sets are I'm a big fan of, other sets not so much. I'm a real big fan. Like, look at this mountain. That is a really nice looking mountain. The issue with me is I like everything to be the same. I like samey in my deck. All my basic lands have to look exactly the same. So I think these are probably going to be a little on the expensive side. So getting, 30 of these mountains for my Browlin deck or something might be a little difficult. But really, really awesome looking. Anyway, let's take a look at some of the commanders coming out. We got a new Breches, Eager, Pillager, 2 and a red, Goblin Pirate, 3/3, first strike. Whenever a pirate you control attacks, choose one that has not been chosen this turn. So you're going to attack, and of course, every time you attack, you're going to get to pick one of these. There's 3 modes. Create a treasure token. Target creature can't block this turn. Exile top card of your library. You may play it this turn, also known as Impulse Draw. So that means if I attack with 3 pirates, and of course your commander is a pirate, you'll be able to choose all 3 of these. You can't choose more than 3, right? You get 3 choices. You get to create a treasure, or a creature can't block, or you impulse draw. And if you have 3 pirates attack, of course, you'll get to choose all 3. So ideally, that's what you're going to want to do here. You're going to want to attack. I mean, you don't have to, but of course, if you can attack with 3 pirates, then you're going to get to pick all 3. And you're going to want to do that as much as possible. So mostly it's going to be, I get a treasure every turn. I get an impulse draw every turn. That's great value. It's just very similar to Ragavan, which of course is a pirate as well, and obviously would be a slam dunk in this deck. Very similar there, where I'm getting the treasure token and the impulse draw every turn. Because, I mean, good value. Obviously, you're doing the pirate tribal, also good value. Because you're doing the treasures, of course, all of the treasure token support in mono red, which of course there's quite a bit, is going to work here. And then, of course, the impulse draw means any of the, like, not any, but a lot of the exile tribal support is also going to work really, really well in this deck. So if you're thinking about going after this is a great one. Mono red pirates, so you're only in mono red, which isn't great. But man, as far as if I was building a mono red pirate deck, this is pretty darn good. Lots of great value there. And again, because you're doing treasure tokens and impulse and all that, those are other avenues you can go down. I don't know how many mono red pirates there are, if you could really fill up a deck with it. Obviously from this set, we're going to see a lot more. But again, you can supplement that with the treasure token support and also the impulse draw support, or the play stuff from exile support as well. So pretty good commander, I think. All right, and we got a new Wotley Poet of Unity. This one is 2 and a green, human warrior bard. Okay, 2/3. When Wotley Poet of Unity enters the battlefield, search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, put it in your hand and shuffle. Okay, not bad. Not sure you're going to build your deck around that, though. Has a transform ability, though, 3 and 2 Boros hybrid mana. So, of course, this is a Naya commander for that reason, which, I don't see anything on here about dinosaurs yet, but I suspect there might be, judging by past Wotleys and also the dinosaurs in the picture. And of course, Naya colors are the best colors for dinosaurs. So I'm going to pay 5 total mana, exile Wotley, then return her to the battlefield transformed under owner's control. Activate only as a sorcery. So no stipulations there, just pay 5 mana. And of course, your commander costs 3, you go get a land. So it would be very easy to do this on the very next turn, I think, probably. And when we transform, we get a saga. That's interesting. Roar of the Fifth People. Chapter 1, create 2 3/3 green dinosaur creature tokens. So I always like to look, whenever you have a situation like this, I go back, I look at that ability. So that's 5 mana. So essentially, this becomes 5 mana, create 2 3/3 green dinosaur creature tokens. Is that worth it? That's pretty good. Just that alone, just the chapter 1, because of course you're going to get that immediately. So you're essentially paying 5 mana to get those 2 3/3 dinosaur tokens. That's pretty good. Not bad. If you just had a sorcery that you cast for 5 mana that gave you 2 3/3 tokens, that's not bad. Chapter 2, Roar of the Fifth People. Gains. Creatures you control have. Tap, add a red, green, or white. Roar of the Fifth. So this card is going to gain that ability. Okay. Creatures you control have. So all your creatures now become mana dorks. All right. Chapter 3, search your library for a dinosaur card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. Okay. Yeah, we're very much doing the dinosaur thing. So obviously the chapter 2 is going to be, probably, it would be a lot better if you had chapter 3 first, so that you could go search your library for a dinosaur card. Then on the following turn, so you could get a big, Gishath or something, obviously, some big expensive dinosaur, and then on the following turn, but I guess your creatures still have it. So I guess that's fine then. I guess the order doesn't matter that much. Yeah, that's why they were. I'm like, why did they word it that way? They worded it that way because your chapter 2 means that ability turns on. Creatures you control have that ability, right? Because this enchantment is gaining that ability. The wording there was weird, and I was like, why did they word it that way? They did it because it stays that way. It doesn't go away. So once you gain the chapter 2, all your creatures are going to be mana dorks until this thing flips back over or goes away or whatever. So that means that indeed, when you chapter 3 go search for a dinosaur, you can then immediately tap all your creatures down to help cast that Gishath or Ghalta or whatever, right? And then chapter 4, dinosaurs you control gain double strike and trample until end of turn. So, I don't know. I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, is anyone going to play this over Gishath? I mean, again, I talk about these things as far as just, I'm being objective here. For me, I think this is way more interesting than Gishath because your commander's a saga and you're doing lots of different little things here. You could probably swap this out if you had a Gishath deck and you would just be fine. I think Gishath's obviously way better. But you still have, and you kind of have your win con on your commander here a little bit. The issue here that I'm seeing is we get to the end of the chapters, and of course, as with most sagas, it just gets sacrificed and goes to the graveyard, right? So you're going to give that overrun-ish effect to your team, and then your commander's going to have to go back to the command zone. So that's definitely something you're going to have to think about when you're doing this. Yeah, and again, remember always with these sagas, if they have the lore counters on them, so you can proliferate and skip up those steps a lot faster, right? But definitely if you're building this commander, you're going to have to think about the fact that your commander is going to eventually die. And, not difficult to get your commander, again, you could send it back to the command zone. You could also just Eternal Witness, Regrowth, any white recursion. There's lots of ways to work around that, but you are going to have to think of it. Let's move on to Ojer Axonil. Never heard of that one before. Deepest Might. This is a god, it looks like. So 2 red, god, 4/4. With Trample, if a red source you control would deal an amount of non-combat damage less than Ojer Axonil's power to an opponent, that source deals damage equal to Ojer Axonil's power instead. Wow. And he's a 4/4. Wow, that is super good. When Ojer Axonil dies, return to the battlefield tapped. So this is a transform as well. Return to the battlefield tapped and transformed under its owner's control. So before we even get to the back, this is maybe a better Perforos, right? I think it is. With Perforos, the damage is built into your commander, so you don't have to build around that. Here, though, it's sort of the reverse almost, where here you want the damage effects. Like I'm thinking of an Impact Tremors, right? Impact Tremors, this seems really good. Impact Tremors, right? So that's a red source I control. Obviously, this is going to go in a ton of the 99. Again, I'm back to my Browlin deck again. I've said it so many times in the last year. I've had that deck for about a year and a half. And again, when I made it, it was a partner without mono red discard theme, and it was kind of fringe. it's getting really, really tough to fit stuff in there. And this is actually a really good fit. If with my Bralin in play, I discard a card, and instead of it dealing, that's a red source that would deal an amount of non-combat damage. So instead of dealing 1, it's going to deal 4 to everybody. Oh boy. Like, I would be silly not to put, like, this is just way better than any of those damage doubler effects that I already have in there. This guy seems bonkers in the 99 of so many decks. But as a commander, it's pretty bonkers too, right? I have that impact tremors. Now, instead of that dealing 1 damage to each opponent, it deals 4. And that's not even including if I can bump my commander's power, which of course you can. Is Blazing Shoal banned in Commander? I can't remember if it is. I think it's banned in Modern. Is it banned in Commander? I don't think it is. So, you bump your commander's power. All you have to do is have, I have a bunch of goblin tokens into the battlefield or something, and I might just be able to end the game right there. Whew, this guy seems really good. Really, really good. I mean, haven't even looked at the backside. So when he dies, you return to the battlefield tapped and transformed. So he's land on the back, Temple of Power. Okay, that's interesting. Taps to add a red. So it's going to be tapped, so you can't use it right away. Pay 2 and a red and tap Transform Temple of Power. Activate only if a red source you control dealt 4 or more non-combat damage this turn, and only as a sorcery. Okay, so this is interesting because you could definitely make an argument for why you wouldn't want to do this, right? So if I'm playing this deck, I kind of like the way they did this God thing. So now it's turning into a land. That's kind of neat. Rather than, the other stuff that they've done with gods where it's indestructible, the devotion, right? I like they're playing into the whole God thing, the whole sort of worship thing maybe. Here it's like, okay, it dies, it goes back to the land. I like that's a neat flavor idea there. So you can obviously choose if your commander dies to just send it back to the command zone, right? Whenever your commander changes zones, and here it's going to die, then return to the battlefield. So it is going to the graveyard. So you don't have to flip it over if you don't want to. Because, of course, you can have your commander trapped on the battlefield as a land, which could be problematic. You might want to be careful there because you can only flip it back over if a red source you control dealt 4 more non-combat damage. That could be problematic for sure. You might want to be careful there. So my commander's about to die, and I'm looking at my hand, and I'm thinking, okay, I don't have anything in hand that can deal 4 damage. I don't have anything on the battlefield that can do that. I might just send my commander back to the command zone and then just recast it the old-fashioned way. It also could be a neat way to just protect, like your commander just turn into a land for a while. You just leave it there. If you're not in any rush to close out the game, you can leave it as a land. It's going to be hard for your opponents to get it off the battlefield, obviously. Really neat. Really powerful too, though. Man, that's really powerful. I don't know how much buzz this guy's getting, but I'm thinking this guy's probably a better Perforos. That's my first impression. All right, Ghalta, Stampede, Tyrant, 5 green. So we are getting another Ghalta. Elder Dinosaur, 12 with Trample, which I believe is the exact same stats as the other one. When Ghalta, Stampede, Tyrant enters the battlefield, put any number of creature cards from your hand onto the battlefield. Oh boy. See, this is sort of what I've been talking about. I made a video a while ago called Mana Cost Doesn't Really Matter Anymore. And mostly I was referring to creatures there because whenever they print a creature like this, they know no one's going to be playing this in Modern unless there's some way to cheat it in play. Again, the only time this gets played in 60 cards like this get played in 60 card formats is when they're cheated into play, right? No one's actually going to pay the 8 mana. Then of course, outside of that, they're taking commander into consideration. And if this is your commander, 8 mana is a lot. Sometimes the game might end by 8 mana, right? I mean, with a green deck, it's not as hard, obviously. So that's why mana cost doesn't really matter anymore, right? It's basically 7-8 is the number that I have. Again, this is just what I've started to notice. An 8 mana, 12 trampling creature is absurd by any standard for Magic the Gathering up until about a year or two ago, okay? About a year or two ago is when they just stopped caring about mana cost, is what I noticed. 8 mana, 12, like there's no downsides here. And in fact, even if it was just a not vanilla, but a 12 trampling creature for 8 mana, that would be considered absurdly ridiculous for most of Magic's history. Now, I don't even think people will be looking at the casting cost for this creature much, right? Because again, outside of Commander, it's not really going to get played. And inside Commander, 8 mana is a lot already. So yeah, who cares what it's doing, right? So that's basic. But once you get up to like 7-8 mana, I don't know if we're ever going to see, I'm just going to throw it out there. I could be wrong. There might be a creature coming out right away. But are we ever going to see a creature that costs more than 8 mana? I don't know. Unless it can be cheated, like its casting cost can be reduced. You know, I know they just had like the guy that came out in Warhammer that cost a whole lot, but you can cheat its casting cost. There's that dragon that is super expensive, but again, you can cheat the casting cost, right? It can be reduced. Are we actually going to have a creature ever again that's more than 8 mana? Because this is ridiculous for 8 mana, I'll just say. Just the 12/12 trample is pretty ridiculous. But on top of that, put any number of creature cards in your hand onto the battlefield. Okay, now, of course, this to me is one of those creatures that people are going to look at when they first see it and go, this is absurd, it's bonkers. Again, I just think the mana cost is a bit much. It's really slow for what it's doing. The fact that you're putting any number of creature cards in your hand onto the battlefield is like, okay, Myojin of the Life's Web, right? That's the green one. Would be the comparison again if we go back a few years, quite a few years, I guess. That's what a creature like that used to look like, that you could, you know, and obviously not nearly as powerful as this, dumping all those creatures from your hand onto the battlefield. And of course, there you can only do it really once. Here, you could even blink this and do it again. Not that you would need to, right? Because of course, unless you had some way to refill your hand with all those creatures, right? It's only something you're probably going to do once a game. So again, I think a lot of people will look at this commander and go, oh, wow, that's absurd, putting all those creatures. Okay, but on turn 8, how many creatures are you going to have in your hand? You're not going to have any unless you've done something like you could Creeping Renaissance because someone board wiped and get all those creatures back out of your graveyard to your hand and then put them into play. There's going to be rare situations like that, but likely, I'm looking at this guy and I'm thinking a few years ago, people would have went nuts for this commander, but now I don't think they are. I don't think they are at all because again, 8 mana, my hand's probably already empty. I guess unless I guess you could Rishkar's Expertise here, right? But then your commander's already in play. I mean, you're going to want to put Rishkar's Expertise in there anyway, obviously. I mean, I guess the best situation here is Conjurer's Closet, right? I Rishkar's Expertise, or Hunter's Insight or something, draw a whole ton of cards. Then I Conjurer's Closet, and when my commander enters again, I can dump all those creatures into play again. Really leaving yourself open to a board wipe there, but that's one way to go with it. The things that stand out to me here is, man, they really just don't care about casting costs when it comes to creatures anymore. And also, this is one of those commanders that I think, again, a few years ago, people would have been going nuts over. And I think, I don't think it's going to be super popular. All right, let's end off with Indominus Rex Alpha. And this one I think is actually from the movies. I think these are this is the actual Jurassic Park one. So 1, 2 Dimir hybrid mana and 2 green mana. So we have a Sultai commander here, obviously, and it's going to cost 5 total mana, which is, of course, not bad. Dinosaur Mutant 6/6. As Indominus Rex Alpha enters the battlefield, discard any number of creature cards. It enters with a flying counter on it. If a card discarded this way had flying, the same is true for First Strike, Double Strike, Death Touch, Hexproof, Haste, Indestructible, Lifelink, Menace, Reach, Trample, and Vigilance. And of course, the big one there is Haste. I'm actually surprised they put that on there because Haste is typically a red ability, although yes, you do have green and sometimes black and even sometimes blue creatures with haste. But the haste I'm actually surprised they put that on there because, of course, it's going to allow you to just pile those counters on your commander and immediately attack. However, I do not see, these are just ability counters. This is not like with what's that insect commander? I can't remember the name now. That does a very similar thing. That one's putting +1/+1 counters on itself. This one's not. Outside of other things you might be putting in the deck, there's no way to make this guy bigger, right? It's only going to be a 6/6. So yeah, you can pile, I guess the double strike, so now I can get in for 12 damage very easily. Haste, flying, hexproof, right? Double strike. So we want the word salad stuff here, obviously, right? The evergreen abilities, the achromas, but of course Achroma can't go in here. Maybe a Nighthawk Scavenger. Funny enough, Riami is very similar where it's doing the Sultai keyword ability stuff. I don't know if you'd want to put that in this deck, though. Maybe, maybe not. The other ability here, though, is when it enters the battlefield, draw a card for each counter on it. And, of course, you would need to do that because it would be not great otherwise because you'd have to discard your whole hand. Then your commander would have a lot of stuff on it, but then if it died, now you're empty-handed, right? That's not great. Pretty interesting. I mean, you're in a Voltron strategy, a pretty decent Voltron strategy, of course, because you can... I don't know how easy it is, but pretty easy to give your commander the hexproof and indestructible, which is of course what you want. 5 mana is not that much. If your commander dies, recasting again for 7 ain't too bad. Again, the fact that you can refill your hand is really the important part. What are some interesting, other than the I just do the evergreen ability thing, which of course we've seen that a lot. There's actually quite a few commanders that are doing that now. Again, even in Sultai colors, we already have it. What could we do outside of that, though? I mean, that last ability says draw a card for each counter on it. So I guess if you could get some other counters on it some other way, you could even draw more cards, maybe, right? So what's that land that has the, whenever your creature enters the battlefield, you could graft, right? What's that land? Is it Land of War Reborn that has the graft on it that you can slide the counter over? So you could, again, you could stack the triggers there so you draw even more. So you could get into some shenanigans here where you, like graft is the one ability that I think that would work here, where it's also an ETB. So if you stack the triggers appropriately, you can slide that +1/+1 counter over to your Indominus Rex, and when it enters the battlefield, draw a card for each counter on it, so you can draw even more cards than you discarded. So there's something neat that you could throw into this guy that's a little bit different. Obviously, ton of draw triggers, so I put that Ornerophage in there, so I draw like 7 cards, and then get a whole bunch of counters on my Ornerophage, right? That kind of stuff you could do here as well. Lots and lots of draw triggers, and of course the discard as well. I think it would behoove you to put a Bone Miser, stuff like that. I mean, I think probably slam dunk Bone Miser, because now I get a whole bunch of zombie tokens. Slam dunk Archfiend of Ifnir. And I mean, any black deck that's discarding at all, that card is bonkers. So I discard, yeah, that card is just an absolute blowout, because now I'm going to discard, let's say 5. All my opponent's creatures get -1, 5 -1/-1 counters. They're probably all dead. Now they don't even have blockers. So I could just that's an absolute slam dunk. So doing a little bit of discard and draw tribal stuff in here, or support, whatever you want to call it, will also be a neat fit. Pretty interesting commander, I guess. All right, that is it. That is all. Just some really interesting commanders that I thought I would talk about, because we got some spoilers dropped on us recently. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. That is it for today, though, and thanks for tuning in.